Hi there, Will here, and today I'd like to talk to you about this marvelous piece of equipment. It's a Fujica G690, also known as the Texas Leica. To try get the most out of this camera, I've come on an adventure with my mate David, and what we're going to end up doing, hopefully, is going around that peak over there on a boat and making some pictures. But before that, please join me at home so I can tell you some of the technical specifications of this piece of equipment. The Fujica G690 came out in December 1968. The story goes that it was brought out as a result of complaints that had been voiced by commercial photographers in Japan, because in making photographs of things such as tourists to give out to them, a 35mm rangefinder, whilst being convenient and easy to use, gave too many frames for them to easily develop quickly, to have a quick turnaround time. So shooting something in 6:9 format, for example, you only get 8 pictures. But if you were to have a camera that had the ease of use of a 35mm rangefinder, you'd get the best of both worlds. Not too many frames and glorious quality and ease of use, and that's the intention behind the Fujica G690. It was designed by a fellow called Yamamoto Kochiko, and apparently he took inspiration from the Combat Graphic in terms of basic function and ease of use. It is of course the predecessor to the Fuji GW series and is in many ways superior. Some ways in which the designer tried to maintain functionality as close as possible to the 35mm system were a back that opens on a hinge, so no separate backs. No dark slide, because it uses a system much like the Mamiya 7 where a curtain is pulled over the film gate and thus you can change lenses without exposing light to the film. The film advance and shutter cocking mechanism are combined, so that differs from something like an IB67 where in order to cock the shutter you need to push the side of the camera and then to advance the film separate lever on the back, all together on this. My favorite element of it is that it has a coupled rangefinder, which means that you don't need to worry about things like parallax correction, because mechanically it corrects for parallax and focus. One of the stranger elements in terms of using it is the fact that the controls for the camera are on the lens. I mean, that's not something I'm unused to because it's the same on the RB, but my brain just didn't like using a rangefinder with the settings on the lens for some reason. It can shoot 120, 220 or 6x5 by 9cm sheet film, which not particularly useful these days, but is a feature that it has. There's a setting on the back of the camera, which you'll notice actually when we go back to the video where I go out and shoot it, that I had turned to sheet film for the initial 2 frames. Didn't make any impact. The only thing it really does, switching between R and S, is making it so that you can fire the shutter without having film in the camera. So if you wanted to test the camera, you set it to S, fire the shutter works. Yeah. It has a cold shoe, so you need to use a PC cord to sync it, and on the lens itself where the PC port sits, you have the option for X and M sync. M sync of course being the bane of all photographers because it serves basically no purpose these days, and if you have your camera accidentally set to M, then you're not going to have your flash synced up. Because basically what it is M is for older flash bulbs where it needed to warm up and then flash, and X is for modern electronic flashes where it instantly gives you the flash that you need. So there's not really much need for M sync anymore in modern society, and the only thing it's ever really managed to do for me is mess up flash exposures when it somehow has ended up on M. There were a number of different models of the Fujica G series that came out. The original, of course, was the G690, which came out in 1968. Then there was the G690BL, which is the one I'm using in this video, which came out in 1969 and had an improved locking function on the back and improved mechanics on the curtain, I think, and black paint. So those are the main differences. Then there was the GL690, which had a bunch of varying features. There's a couple of videos you can check out on them on YouTube. I think one of the standout features was 2 shutter buttons, which is cool. And then a 6x7 variant, I think, which I'd have been very keen on, to be honest. And I'll talk about that more later in the video. Leica, Texas Leica. go see a bunch of those, hopefully. A lot of them.
Seal. There's a seal.
Seagull?
Hi, we're from China. You love China?
I love China. I don't want to shoot into the sun. The light is wavy on you. So the reason we're on this bumpy boat over here is to go photograph some seals on an island called Dacre Island, also known as Seal Island because it's got a lot of seals on it, and I think we've just arrived.
Welcome to Dacre Island, more commonly known as Seal Island for fairly obvious reasons. The island's name is derived from the black birds that you might see on some of the rocks. These are called dacres, or cormorants in English. And the island is also home to between about 1,000 and 5,000 Cape fur seals, depending on the time of year, as during the winter months the majority of the population will leave in search of food. And they'll return in the summer in order for the females to give birth to their pups. Each female can give birth to a single pup each year, and it takes them around 6 weeks to learn to swim. Their lifespan is about 18 years, and the bulls can grow up to 350 kilograms. You might notice some of the seals in the water with their fins or flippers up in the air, and this is due to the fact that the blood runs closest to the surface of their skin on these fins, and they use them as a sort of solar heating system for the rest of their body.
Alright, well, that was quite a good adventure. Quite chuffed with David for sending me on that. I was slightly hesitant initially, but there were a lot of scenes to be seen. The boat was kind of rocky, which was a bit disconcerting. In terms of my experience with the camera, I reckon I'll tell you a bit more about that at home. This is of course not a long-term review like a lot of the other reviews I've put up of cameras, hence why I'm not calling it a review. So please don't take anything I say as gospel. It's just my observations having used the camera one time. To start off with, I have seen in other reviews that people have said that it's more convenient for travel and a better size than an RB67. I would like to beg to differ on that front because it is bigger in terms of its footprint than an RB67 and honestly more cumbersome to use to me. And of course there's an immense bias in this statement from me because I've used the RB67 for everything basically for like 8 years now, and have just tried this once. But the fact of the matter is, to me, the RB67 feels better when you hold it the way an RB67 is meant to be held than this does in hand, because it's basically just an upscaled rangefinder system and is very front heavy with this 100mm lens on it that I used. It also hurt my brain a bit having to adjust the shutter settings and such on the lens itself, and that's not something I'm unused to, because obviously that's the way it works on the RB67, which is my main camera. But the combination of rangefinder and settings on the lens just really didn't gel, and I was quite worried on the day, being in such a tizzy, having to work between rangefinder and things on the lens, that I hadn't actually gotten any good pictures because I was so spazzed out about how weird it was having the settings on the lens on a rangefinder. But it is a very basic camera, you know, which is pretty good, because the less things are to go wrong, the less will go wrong, and the more fun you'll have shooting it. I suppose I should break this down into some pros and cons, actually. Pro, and this is the biggest pro, it's actually probably my favorite feature about this camera, is that it has parallax correction. So you can focus it wherever you want, and where the frame lines are sitting is where your frame is going to be, which is something that myriad other rangefinders don't have built into them. It's inexpensive for what it is, especially if you manage to get a hold of the G670 variant, because then you get all the benefits of 6x7 rangefinder without the cost of only 8 frames and 6x9 as a format. The results are pretty decent. I mean, there's a few of these landscape pictures where the shutter speed was a 400th of a second and it was still blurry for some reason, which most likely has to do with the lens and not the camera itself. But when things worked, they were beautiful. The lens has a very nice rendering, a beautiful medium format feel to it, not too clinical. And that'll lead me on to my first con, which is the fact that it's a 6x9 camera. And I don't know why, but for some reason, I just really don't like 6x9. This is, of course, a personal preference thing, but to me, medium format film and 6x7 go hand in hand, and 6x7 is sort of the ideal format, you know, like the way my brain wants to compose things is in 6x7. So in a lot of these pictures, if I use them for anything, and there's one or two that I actually do want to use because they came out quite nicely, I'll probably actually just crop them down to 6x7, because 6x9 just gives you too much in the frame. I mean, why not shoot 35mm? And the argument is, of course, that medium format is higher quality, but that higher quality looks much better in a compressed 6x7 frame than it does in 6x9 to me, to be honest. And that's just my opinion, obviously. It's also weirdly shaped and cumbersome. Like, I don't know, maybe I just have weak forearms or something, but it really, I don't understand how people are saying in other reviews of this thing that it is convenient compared to an RB67, because it's so front heavy, especially with this 100mm lens, that it's like my wrist is fighting against it every time I want to use it. And it's not like painful or uncomfortable to the extent that like I wouldn't be happy to use it in every day. It's just a lie in my eyes to say that it isn't cumbersome, because all this thing wants to do is go vroom the entire time, and that's basically what you're fighting against. The viewfinder is also not the greatest in my opinion. I don't know, maybe if you can like really shove your eye inside it, it fills up a bit, but it's a bit dim on this one, and the rangefinder patch also isn't very good. It's sort of fuzzy on the edges and not really that bright. But I mean, it's a camera from 1968, so it's not really the biggest complaint, and obviously things worked out very well because everything that I tried to focus on was focused on, which is more than I can say for my Mamiya 7 in some circumstances. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say about it. I did enjoy using it. I haven't been sold on the 6x9 format. However, if a 6x7 variant of it were to pop up around here, I would be very keen on picking one up, because as a camera system, it's sick. And if I had something that wasn't that 100mm on it, it would probably feel quite nicely balanced. And 6x7 in that format, fully mechanical, with parallax correction, would be ideal. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I had good fun shooting it, and it was a lovely little adventure with David. And speaking of adventures, I'm very pleased to report, for those of you who follow along with things, that I'm heading on a road trip soon. At least a 2-week trip around South Africa, which is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and things are looking like they've lined up for me to be able to do it. It's going to be largely, of course, thanks to the members of my Buy Me a Coffee, since that's basically what that has been leading up to for the longest time. So thank you to the members of my Buy Me a Coffee. I'm going to take all the little Buy Me a Coffee member Polaroids that I have with me on this trip, so if perchance you wanted to have a little Polaroid or something with your name on it against a South African Vista in one of these videos, then consider becoming a member. It helps the channel immensely. Anyway, I'll see you soon.